Hello, horror lovers. Welcome to the chilling world of Mr. Haunt. Please subscribe. It's our biggest motivation to keep bringing you spine-tingling stories. Let us know in the comments which city you're listening from. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Now, let's get into the stories. I had been an avid hiker for years, always seeking trails that were off the beaten path, places that felt untouched and wild. When my friend Derek suggested a weekend expedition into the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, I jumped at the chance. He promised solitude, breathtaking views, and the kind of adventure that city life couldn't provide. The first day was perfect. We hiked through thick forests, past sparkling streams, and over rocky ridges. The air was crisp, pine-scented, and the mountains stretched endlessly around us. We set up camp near a ridge that overlooked a valley, our small tent tucked behind a cluster of boulders. That night, as we sat around the fire, I felt a subtle shift in the forest. The usual nighttime sounds, the rustle of leaves, distant animal calls seemed muted, too muted. And then I heard a noise, soft, deliberate, almost like something was walking just beyond the tree line. Probably a deer, Derek said casually, tossing a log onto the fire. I nodded, but unease settled in my chest. There was something in that noise that didn't belong to any animal I knew. It wasn't random, it was intentional. We went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Every crack of a branch, every whisper of the wind, felt amplified. And then I heard it, a voice, low and guttural, whispering my name. I froze, straining to listen. Derek, still asleep, didn't stir. The voice came again, this time mimicking me, twisting my own words into something sinister. I shook him awake. Derek, wake up. There's something out there, he groaned, squinting at me. It's just the wind, man. Go back to sleep. But I couldn't. Something was wrong. The forest felt alive in a way that made my skin crawl, like it was breathing, watching, waiting. Around midnight, we heard movement outside the tent. Something was circling us. Slow, deliberate steps, bending and twisting in impossible ways. I could hear it mimicking our breathing, our whispers, our every little noise, turning them into grotesque echoes. I unzipped the tent and peered out. At first, I thought it was a man, thin and tall, crouched low among the trees. But the form shifted, limbs elongated unnaturally, head tilting in ways no human should be able to, fur bristling along its back. Its eyes caught the firelight from our camp stove, reflecting with an intelligence that made my stomach churn. Get back in the tent, I whispered, shaking Derek awake again. He froze, following my gaze. His face went pale. What the hell? The creature didn't attack immediately. It circled, studying us, and then vanished into the shadows. We stayed frozen for what felt like hours, every nerve on edge. The following day, we tried to rationalize what had happened. Maybe it was a coyote, Derek suggested, or someone messing with us. I didn't buy it. Coyotes don't mimic human voices. People don't move like that, bending and twisting like shadows made flesh. That night, the Skinwalker wore, whatever it was, thrit. It was closer now, at the edge of the ridge, moving among the rocks and trees with unnatural grace. It began mimicking us again, but this time it wasn't just our voices. It imitated our fears. You're not strong enough to survive, it whispered, sounding like my own inner voice. Derek froze, then started walking backward, muttering, trying to rationalize it. The creature tilted its head, watching, learning. Then it lunged, not at us directly, but toward the ridge, forcing us to retreat, scramble, and stumble over rocks. We spent the rest of the night running through the ridge, exhausted and terrified, until the first light of dawn revealed a path leading down to a river. We didn't stop. We crossed the water, clambered up the opposite bank, and didn't look back. Even now, weeks later, I can feel it. Shadows flit across my vision, whispers echo in empty rooms, and I know it's out there, somewhere, waiting for the next person foolish enough to wander into its territory. The mountains have their secrets. I learned that the hard way, and the Skinwalker is one of them. I had always preferred solitude in nature. There's a certain clarity you can only get when you're completely alone, away from phones, people, and distractions. That's why I decided to spend a week camping alone in the high desert of northern Arizona, in an area far off any maintained trail. I wanted to hike, take photographs, and just be alone with the wilderness. The first day was the desert stretched endlessly, red rocks glowing in the sunset, sagebrush and juniper trees scattered across the landscape. I found a small natural basin near a dry creek to set up my tent. The perfect spot for privacy and a good view of the surrounding ridges. As night fell, the desert became alive in a way I wasn't expecting. The wind carried strange sounds, not the typical rustle of leaves or distant coyote howls, but something heavier, deliberate. I chalked it up to the desert's quirks, shadows cast by rocks. The eerie echo of wind, but something about the way it moved through the landscape unsettled me. Around midnight, I woke to a crack of a branch and a low guttural sound. My first instinct was to think it was a mountain lion or bobcat, but the noise didn't match any animal I had heard before. It was heavier, deliberate, intelligent. I grabbed my flashlight and scanned the dark expanse around the basin. At first, I saw nothing, and then I saw it. A figure standing near a cluster of rocks, tall, thin, and impossibly still. Its limbs bent in ways that no human or animal should move. Its eyes caught the flashlight beam, reflecting back a dark, almost glowing light. For a moment, I froze, heart hammering. The figure tilted its head unnaturally, as if studying me. I tried to rationalize it, some lost hiker. An animal. My imagination, but deep down, I knew better. The Skinwalker did not move immediately. It simply watched. Then, almost imperceptibly, it began to mimic me. My movements, my breathing, even my cautious steps away from it, were mirrored perfectly, distorted slightly, grotesquely. I started to run, stumbling over rocks and dry brush. The creature followed, moving in a way that no normal being could, appearing and disappearing as if it existed between shadows. I could hear my own voice calling out my name, distorted and twisted, coming from places I knew were empty. Over the next several nights, the terror escalated. The Skinwalker became more brazen, appearing closer, mimicking my voice perfectly, whispering my fears aloud. At one point I found my supplies scattered, as if it had gone through them while I slept. It didn't steal, but it left subtle warnings, marks in the sand, scratches on the nearby rocks. Isolation magnified the fear. Each day, I questioned my sanity. Every shadow seemed alive. Every gust of wind carried whispers of my own thoughts. I tried to leave the area, but the landscape seemed to twist around me. Trails I thought I knew looped back to my campsite. Rocks and ridges appeared where they hadn't before. The Skinwalker wasn't just stalking MIT, was manipulating the terrain, hurting me, playing a game I could barely comprehend. On the fifth night, I was certain it was inside the basin with me. I had barely slept, sitting upright in my tent with the flashlight on. Outside, I heard the unmistakable sound of limbs moving through brush. I held my breath, listening. Then came the whispers, my own voice, calling out, distorted, pleading, angry. I unzipped the tent just enough to peer out. The figure crouched on a rock a few yards away. Its body flickered between human, wolf, and something indescribably inhuman. Its eyes were fixed on me, intelligent and ancient, as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. I ran. I ran without thinking, down the dry creek bed, over rocks and sand, feeling it move alongside me, sometimes audible, sometimes only in glimpses from the corner of my eye. Hours passed before dawn broke. Exhausted, I collapsed in a shaded alcove far from my camp, convinced it had finally left. I made my way back to civilization the next day, but the sense of being hunted didn't leave. Shadows flicker in my peripheral vision even here, in the city. At night, whispers echo when I'm alone, indistinct but deliberate, shaping themselves from my own thoughts. I know what I saw, what I felt, and what I survived. The Skinwalker exists not just in the forest, not just in the desert, but in the spaces between fear and perception. And once it knows you, once it marks you with its presence, it never truly lets go. I will never return to the high desert. I will never seek solitude in the wilderness again, and I will always remember its eyes, glowing in the darkness, patient, intelligent, and unrelenting. It was supposed to be a fun weekend. For friends me, my brother Jake, his girlfriend Emily, and our friend Marcus decided to go camping deep in the canyons of northern Utah. The plan was simple: hike through the red rock formations, spend the night near a hidden water hole, and return by Sunday. The idea of isolation, away from the crowds and cell service, sounded perfect. The first afternoon went smoothly. We hiked narrow trails, scrambled over boulders, and admired the canyon walls glowing under the sun. By sunset, we reached a small clearing near the waterhole and set up camp. The air was cool, the rocks warmed by the last rays of sunlight. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, how untouched and wild the canyon was. But as darkness fell, the first signs appeared. It started with noises snapping branches, low rustling in the rocks, subtle but deliberate. We tried to ignore it, blaming wind or small animals. But then we heard it, a voice. Not human, not entirely, but speaking in a whisper that mimicked Jake's voice. "Did you bring the tent poles?" Jake froze. Don't think I said that out loud." Emily's eyes widened. "That sounded exactly like you." We laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. Maybe it was a trick of the wind, or our imaginations heightened by isolation. But deep down, I knew it wasn't a trick. Around midnight, the Skinwalker made its presence undeniable. I was the first to see it. Its form moved along the canyon walls, tall, thin, and unnaturally still. Limbs bent at angles that no human could manage. Its body flickering between shadow, human, and something animalistic. Its eyes reflected the moonlight, cold and intelligent. It crouched, watching us, studying every movement. Then it began to mimic us. Not just voices now, but movements. Jake's hand gestures, Emily's shiver, even Marcus's nervous foot tapping. Every action was copied perfectly, but distorted, grotesque. Panic set in. We huddled around the small fire, trying to appear larger, trying to act brave. But the Skinwalker wasn't intimidated. It circled the clearing silently, studying us, learning. At one point, it called out Emily's name in a perfect imitation of her voice, coaxing her toward the shadows. Marcus nearly bolted, shouting at it to leave her alone. I grabbed his arm, pulling him back, heart hammering. We spent the rest of the night awake, listening to whispers and footsteps, jumping at every sound. Sleep was impossible. The next day, we tried to leave, taking the trails back the way we had come, but the Skinwalker had turned the canyon into its labyrinth. Paths looped back on themselves. Rocks and shadows appeared where none had been before. It wasn't chasing us, yet it was testing us, hurting us, and breaking our confidence. Night 2 was worse. It came closer, emerging into the open, standing between us and the waterhole. Its body shifted constantly, flickering between human, wolf, and something else entirely. Its head tilted in impossible ways, and its grin, if you could call it that, stretched inhumanly wide. It mimicked our voices again, but this time it twisted our words, turning arguments we had had days before into whispers that provoked panic and mistrust. "He doesn't trust you," it whispered in Emily's voice. "You'll leave him behind," it whispered in Jake's voice. We were on edge, exhausted, terrified. We huddled close, trying to stay together, but it felt like it was in our minds, warping our perceptions, preying on our deepest fears. By dawn, we stumbled onto a rocky outcrop, overlooking the canyon exit. We didn't stop. We ran, climbed, and scrambled until the first rays of sunlight hit us, marking the end of our ordeal. We didn't look back, but I know it followed for a while, unseen, patient. Weeks later, the images and whispers linger. Shadows move differently at night, in quiet moments. I hear my own voice calling from the darkness, distorted and pleading. I know the Skinwalker is still out there, waiting for the next group, foolish enough to enter its territory. The canyon has its secrets. We barely survived to tell this one, and I know now that some places are not meant for humans. I had been hunting with my dad and his friend Tom every year since I was a kid, but this year we decided to go further than ever before, deep into the Gila wilderness in New Mexico. We wanted isolation, big game, and a chance to push our skills to the limit. I had been thrilled, oblivious to the danger that awaited us. The first day was uneventful. We hiked deep into the forest, the dense pines and scrub, hiding the occasional deer and elk tracks. We set up a small camp near a ridge overlooking a narrow valley, enough space for 3 tents and our gear. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, the sunlight streaming through the trees, the distant sound of a creek. The first night, everything changed. It started with noises, branches snapping, rocks shifting. At first Dad said it was probably deer or a coyote, but then came the sound that made my blood run cold. A voice, low, guttural, whispering my name, "Ethan." I froze. "Did you hear that?" Dad frowned, shining a flashlight into the forest. "It's probably the wind. There's nothing out there." Tom laughed nervously. "Yeah, don't let your imagination run wild. We're in the wilderness, that's all." But it wasn't imagination. Around midnight, I woke to movement near our fire. One of the tents rustled. I grabbed my rifle instinctively, heart hammering. Through the darkness, I saw a figure. It was tall, thin, limbs bending in ways that no human should, crouched low, watching us. Its head tilted unnaturally, and its eyes glinted in the firelight. It didn't move like any animal I'd seen. Its presence alone was wrong, too intelligent, too deliberate. Then, it began mimicking us. First our voices, then our movements. Dad's careful motions, Tom's fidgeting, my own nervous shifting. Every action, copied, but distorted, grotesque. Panic set in. We huddled together near the fire, trying to act brave, but the creature wasn't intimidated. It circled us silently, studying, learning, waiting. At one point, it called out Tom's name in his exact voice, coaxing him toward the shadows. "It's just like he's calling me," Tom whispered, backing away. "It sounds just like me." I grabbed him, shaking him, telling him to stay close. That was when it lunged, or rather, it dropped from a ridge above, moving faster than any human could. We scrambled, stumbling over rocks, shouting, firing warning shots. But it vanished into the shadows before it touched us. We didn't sleep again that night. The following days were a blur of fear. The Skinwalker roar, Whatever it was followed us, always unseen, until we glimpsed its shifting form. It mimicked our voices, twisted our fears, and manipulated the forest itself. Paths looped back on themselves, landmarks seemed to move, and every night it returned, closer, more aggressive, more intelligent. By the third night, we were breaking down. Dad muttered about quitting, about leaving, but the Skinwalker had learned our weaknesses. It whispered our fears aloud, turned our arguments against us, and forced us to stay on edge. The fourth night was the worst. We tried to leave the ridge, hiking all night through the dense forest, but the creature was waiting. It emerged between the trees, in full view, a towering, shifting mass of limbs, fur, and shadow, eyes glowing with malice. It mimicked our voices again, now turning our own words into threats and accusations. It didn't chase like a predator. It studied, it tested, it stalked by sunrise. We had finally escaped the forest, emerging near a logging road. We didn't stop until we reached a small town hours away. We didn't speak. We barely moved. Even now, weeks later, I feel it. Shadows at the edge of my vision, whispers when I'm alone. Every movement in the dark, every crack of a branch, makes my heart race. I know the Skinwalker exists. It is patient. It is intelligent. It learns. And once it knows you, it never forgets. And